Greetings, welcome to the latest of my deep dive videos. Today I'm going to explore the Libra New Moon, which occurs globally on the 21st of October. Libra is a sign very much to do with communication. It's an air sign, but also balance, justice, equilibrium, and also relationships. You can download your unique New Moon workbook by clicking on the link beneath this video. The workbook will help you to navigate this event in the best possible way. The diplomacy of the sign of Libra comes from its ruler of Venus, but it's equally a cardinal sign, which is very much about leadership and initiation. Libra energy likes to keep the peace, as can Venus. But also, if we maintain that status quo to such a degree that we lose sight of our individuality, that can be more challenging. Now, whenever we have a lunation, new or full moon, there's often lots of information competing for our attention across social media, memes and so on, but they don't always talk about the event in a specific way, but more of a generalized way. The only way we can really understand the power of this particular Libra new moon is to look at the event charts, to really get into the detail of how all the other planetary influences feed into this event. So for example, even though Venus is at home, she's not forging any particularly powerful influence to any other players, including the new moon itself. Also, we need to consider that the sun in the sign of Libra is in its fall, so it's not its strongest new moon of the year by any means at all. And perhaps the moon in Libra can also be a little bit reluctant to confront things that may be more challenging. But if we widen the lens, there are other planetary players which suggest that this is a month ahead, a time when we can set our intentions about all sorts of relationship hopes, but the scales are very much out of balance, I would say, for us all. So we need to be conscious of that. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell. A very warm welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. I have found that over 50% of people who regularly watch my videos are not subscribers. If that's you, please help the channel to continue to thrive and click that sub button, but also the bell notification symbol. Also, just to share, I've launched my year 2026 deep dive videos. You can watch the astrological overview for us all collectively, or choose to watch your unique zodiac sign forecast. Please see the link below for more. Now, just to say, if I do flag up some information on my website, YouTube are now sharing a pop-up which asks the question, do you really want to leave YouTube? And I think it's making some people a little bit nervous that by leaving YouTube, you may be going to a website that's not safe, doesn't have a security certificate, which is known as an SSL. Well, patrickarundell.com definitely has that. On the screen now, I'm sharing that pop-up. And please have the confidence to click outside of YouTube. They're trying to keep people very much within the platform, which you can understand to some degree, but there is information outside YouTube which is very valuable too. So this particular event occurs at 28 degrees in the sign of Libra, so pretty late. It's also conjunct a fixed star called Isar, which has a quite masculine dimension to it. Now, the sign of Libra is a masculine energy, but Isar has a kind of flavour of Mars, and of course Venus is very much more to do with the more gentle or genteel way of connecting. Mars is much more thrusting, but Mars is going to play a big role on this event, as I will share shortly. But that particular fixed star is very good for being very assertive. It has a flavour of Mars and very much to do with authority and leadership, which is intriguing. Also, this is the first of 6 new moons, which are all going to be at 28 degrees. How about that? That's quite a synchronicity that's upcoming. Now, new moons are, of course, a time for us to set our intentions. If we're wanting to bring greater balance and equilibrium into our life, that's a completely understandable thing to desire. The last decan of the sign of Libra, where this event occurs, is subruled by Mercury. And of course, the sign of Libra, as I just mentioned, is very much about communication, which Mercury is very much about. So we need to think as well as relate to others as crisply as we possibly can. But new moon themes certainly can be very potent. We can set things in motion in a very exciting way. But what about this particular Libran new moon? Because the fairness and the equilibrium that Libra is very much about is going to be challenged by the role of Saturn and to a degree Neptune, but also of Pluto. Pluto's squaring this new moon and Saturn's in a quincunx. That's really, really big stuff because Pluto's about transformation, but power. And of course, Saturn is about structure, but also can be about limitation. I will share on the screen shortly the event chart, but we also have Mercury and Mars in a conjunction. It was exact yesterday on the 20th in the sign of Scorpio, which is rather an abrasive combination. Mercury in Scorpio is very much the investigator, it's the detective, and has been given us an appetite to get beneath the surface. When we put it together with the more assertive, impatient energies of Mars in Scorpio, which it rules, that can create a very, very acerbic energy. Certainly I feel this is a new moon which could see anything around our relationship matter. We could see more information come into the open. It may be around sex scandals, it may be around corruption, it may be around long-term finances, which of course Scorpio governs. And with the modern ruler of the sign of Scorpio applying in that square to this event, that is very important too. Now Venus is the dispositor of the sign of Libra, of course, and as I mentioned, it is at home at 9 degrees and 29, so it's just in the first 10 degrees, so it is in that first decan subruled by Venus. So in a way, our desire for equilibrium and fairness is very strong, but are we going to get it? And I feel that we may have to be very, very realistic about what the prospects are over the next month. So who will this affect most? At 28 degrees and 21 minutes, if you have got any cardinal planets between 25 degrees and 29 degrees and 59 minutes, you're going to feel this in a very angular way. So if you've got energy at the end of Libra, at the end of Capricorn, the end of Aries or Cancer, that's all going to influence you in a very angular way. But of course there will be other planetary influences that do connect with this. The other thing to consider is where do you have 28 degrees Libra in your natal chart, and that's something to check out too. And just to say, if you'd like to order your year 2026 personal transits forecast, you can do so now. Get the rest of this year free. Also my special package, 30% off, get your life roadmap report. That will give you searing insights to the unique energies that are played out in your life so far, but help you to gain a more intimate understanding of how to work with these, and together with the forecast to time your moves in the months ahead in a much sharper way. You'll also get your free gift of your general, love, Chinese and Indian Zodiac forecast for 2026. Please see the link below for more. So on the screen now is the solar event chart, and that looks at the situation from an overall zodiacal viewpoint and puts the ascendant technically at 0 degrees Aries. Guess what? We have Neptune there, and that's creating a sense of unreality for many of us. But the energy of the moon and the sun in Libra together with Venus there is pushing us to try to find that collaboration and connection over the next 4 weeks. What's not to like? Well, Pluto in Aquarius, the planet of the collective, in the sign of connections, is challenging the sun and the moon in a right angle. We need to think of the Sun and the Moon as being scorpionic, essentially. So anything to do with control, leverage, possessiveness, those issues could come up around relationships over the next month. But we also need to be conscious of Saturn. Saturn's in a quincunx with the Moon and the Sun, but it's hidden away at the end of its journey in Pisces. It's very psychological, and it's possible that even if we're trying to mediate or connect in as skillful way as we can, someone could bring up an old issue, or it could be their old issue which is preventing that harmony. It may be stuff we need to work on ourselves. Past upsets may be stopping us from really flowing around our connections as well as we could. So Saturn and Neptune are both in that quincunx, and Pluto in the square. But also look at the energy of Mars and Mercury. Now, the conjunction between them was exact on the 20th of October, but that's a really powerful combination. And they have a desire, really, to use our thinking and our communication, but also our thrust, to try to uncover anything that may have been hidden and disguised. So I think the potential for more to come into the open around scandals, whether it's around bribery, corruption, public figures who perhaps been involved in anything to do with inappropriate sexual behaviour. Some of those things can come more into the open over the next month. We also have the Sun and the Moon separating, particularly the Sun from Jupiter in the square, which became exact last week. That's also asking us to try to use the rationality of the air sign of Libra and not get too caught up in, see, Jupiter loves being in Cancer, it's exalted, but Jupiter also can perhaps be a little over optimistic, and we need to just keep our feet on the ground. To summarize the solar event chart, as much as we may want to forge those alliances, use a spirit of collaboration, try to keep things on a balance. It may be that we're being pushed to stand up to or confront something that we may at some level wish to avoid, because Libran energy does essentially at times dislike rocking the boat, but when stirred, the other energy of the opposite sign of Aries, that Mars energy, is something that Libran people can show. So if you are in a situation where someone's being dominating, unfair, using power in a way that doesn't meet your needs, your boundaries feel overwhelmed, it's definitely a time to push back. So let's take a look at this event from a natal event chart viewpoint, using Placidus, Greenwich, because of the prime meridian, but also universal central time. The Sun and the Moon are in the 9th house. The 9th house can be a truth seeker, and the sign of Libra is therefore seeking truth around connections. But if we look at the position of Mars and Mercury, they're in a very dominant part of the chart, the 10th house. They really do want to hold sway. So we need to be aware what people may be covering up, or where they may be using aggressive language, Mercury, in order to retain control. The modern higher octave ruler of the sign of Scorpio, Pluto, is squaring up with the Moon and the Sun, which again we need to think a little bit as being getting towards that 10th house cusp. But in natal astrology, the 1st and the 9th means that our need to be actualize our individuality, Pluto, at times may make it feel over the next month that we don't have as many choices, or information isn't being presented to us in quite as clear way as it could. If we look at where Jupiter is in the 7th house, very Libran, and the square with the position of the Sun and the Moon, the way that information is going to be imparted to us may be, or may see even difficult things delivered in a very subtle way. If you like, the steel fist in the velvet glove. Watch out for that kind of energy. And then Saturn and Neptune are in house 2. Very much about our self-worth, our values, but everyday money. I think we are going to see a major reset around finances. This is something that I've been predicting for some while. So I think when it comes to our own resources, the ninth house can be where we amplify and at times maybe even exaggerate or have a desire to be quite spontaneous, and Saturn's basically saying, look, stay quite anchored about using your resources as best you can. I'm going to share with you now the exact timings for all the major cities of the world. And now I'm going to go through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces to give you a flavour of what to expect over the next month in terms of your ascendant, sun or the moon. So Aries, the combination between your ruler Mars and Mercury is really exciting if you're wanting to go on the front foot around any kind of business or investment idea, or you're wanting to be more entrepreneurial, and if you're connecting or collaborating with someone in order to advance your aims, that on the face of it seems really positive. But just be aware, with Saturn now back in your 12th house, soon to be joined by the dreamy drifting energies of Neptune, what isn't so obvious is going to be so important. So you won't necessarily be told everything you could be told. You may not be sharing everything you could say. And it's also possible that some of your own inner reticence or concerns could inhibit a little bit the progress that you need to make. But just be aware that Pluto generally is going to continue to be very powerful for you if you do want to evolve your connection to the world and forge collaborations. It's just this particular new moon is so late in Libra, it's not helping you so much in the way it ordinarily would to chime with other people with equilibrium. So there could be some agendas, quite frankly, that are not really obvious. But the other thing to be conscious of around personal relationships, if you do or have met someone and you do want to take it forwards, I wouldn't try too hard. I wouldn't rush it. I think Mars and Mercury could make you a little impatient, and it's better to slow things down and just go through the processes. Because with the Sun soon to dive deep to join up with Mercury and also Mars, the more psychological side of your connections to others, and Pluto's going to square up to the Sun when it moves into Scorpio, just like it does to this event. So there may be some inconvenient truths that do need to be confronted. So whether it's around friendships, your family, a potential love affair, a tie you're involved in at the present time, or seeking some kind of collaboration in a business context, not everything will be as it appears. And there could be some deep thinking that you need to do, maybe even some deep work to clear the space within you to feel really assured that the connections you're making can be very constructive for you over the next 4 weeks. It's been a pleasure sharing this Libra new moon with you. Please check out your year 2026 deep dive forecast by clicking on the link beneath this video. So Taurus, the commonality you have with the sign of Libra is you're both ruled by Venus. And Venus happens to be at home in the sign of Libra, suggesting that your capacity to assist other people and be very supportive, particularly on everyday practical routines, is definitely enhanced. What's not to like? Well, it's just because of the conjunction between Mercury and Mars in your 7th house. They're kind of saying to you, are you almost doing too much? Are you being too conscientious and someone else isn't really perhaps respecting it as much as they could? Just be conscious of that. Also because of the role of Saturn in the part of your chart to do with your long-term plan. If you're involved in a job at the moment, for example, which you don't find particularly satisfying, and there isn't the simpatico with your colleagues that you would really like, I think you're going to have the confidence over the next month to actually find your voice. Libra energy can be a little avoiding of conflict. I think you're going to be feistier about setting your boundaries, but I think that's a very good thing. But if you work in a situation where you're expected to just lap it up, maybe a big corporation, and not say how you feel, perhaps the best thing you could do, if it's not really working for you, is to try to seek another opportunity. And if you can, through this new moon, even work for yourself. Do something which gives you that satisfaction of a job well done, but also if you're appreciated by the people around you, not just taken for granted. So in any situation at the moment, you need to enjoy it. It is an opportunity to get a bit more virtuous about what you eat or drink, how much sleep you get, your diet, anything like that. That's very sixth house energy. But I think it's how you are engaging with others, which is really the subplot in this situation, which is so important, or how much appreciation you feel you're getting back from them. It's been a pleasure sharing this Libra new moon with you. Please check out your year 2026 deep dive forecast by clicking on the link beneath this video. So Gemini, Libra new moons are usually an opportunity for you to turn up the volume when it comes to your innate charisma. You can still do that over the next month, but there are some conditioning influences. We do need to be conscious of the role of Saturn. Saturn is inversed back from the 1st of September into the part of your chart to do with your role in life. But it's a very serious location for Saturn. One, it has an echo with the 10th house, very Capricorn-like. And if you're up for working very hard towards a major goal between now and the middle of February, you could achieve it. But there may also be more scrutiny and pressure and attention. And because of the more playful energies of the 5th house, I don't feel it's going to be so easy if you work in a big organisation to be just your natural self. Also because your ruler Mercury is so tightly marshalled by Mars, the details of things won't evade you. You're going to have an ability to cut through in a very forensic, surgical way to anything that's going on at the moment. And again, that's a bit counterintuitive to being more playful. With Pluto also about to be clashing with the Sun once it moves into Scorpio, but broadly in a square with the Sun and the Moon, I think you need to be conscious of where you feel that your desire to evolve and grow and do things differently are being conflicted by everyday, perhaps rather mundane strands and roles in your situation. It's been a pleasure sharing this Libra new moon with you. Please check out your year 2026 deep dive forecast by clicking on the link beneath this video. So Cancer, over the last month, as the Sun has made his way through the sign of Libra, that's been nudging you to think very carefully about where you live, who you live with and how, your deeper emotional needs, to consider your family connections, and perhaps also going right back into the roots of your life. And if you have been doing a lot of reflecting, even studying genealogy, it wouldn't be a complete surprise. But I'm going to ask you a question. Do you feel those strands of your situation are in balance? Are they working properly? Is communication around your emotional life as easy and smooth as you would like? Or do you feel your life is too dominated by the needs domestically, perhaps supporting other people, maybe your children, maybe people older than you, because you're entering a part of the year when the chances are you're going to want to be more free-spirited, more playful, and why not? But if something is out of kilter, I think the role of Pluto and Saturn in particular on this event are urging you not just to look at something, but to reveal it too. And both of those things can be an anathema to Cancer people, because there's part of you that would prefer to withdraw if you're unsure, but not necessarily engage. And I think as far as Saturn's concerned, it is pushing you to discuss the things that you feel are unfair and what are your truth with other people, even if they find it quite challenging. And with Pluto, that's in a much deeper lying part of your chart. Perhaps you're also about to or are processing a financial reality about where you live. If you want to move, if you want to rent somewhere bigger, or you want to downsize if people have left the nest, those kind of strands may be going on as well. But if your home, emotional and family life is somewhat out of kilter, or where you work doesn't feel very comfortable, and you're yearning for something that's more sociable and fun, those are the questions that call out to you on this particular lunation. It's been a pleasure sharing this Libra New Moon with you. Please check out your year 2026 deep dive forecast by clicking on the link beneath this video. So Leo, the power of words is emphasized by this particular event, but not just by the new moon themselves. Because Mercury, the communicator, is very, very close to Mars in what is your fourth solar house. If there is a conversation that doesn't run very sweetly over the next month, you could find yourself feeling a bit triggered and defensive. Just be aware of it. It doesn't necessarily have to go in that direction. Diplomacy is obviously an important part of Libra energy, but sometimes there are things in life where we have to take a stand. And maybe the thing that you're about to discuss is about finance, because with Saturn in its return to the sign of Pisces, is going to ask you right through to the middle of February to really work hard at anything to do with long-term financial planning. Whether it is to do with pensions, investments, savings, equities, could even be to do with inheritances. And those are difficult conversations at times, particularly with loved ones. But of course, the sign of Libra is about the conversation for you, but it's about choosing your words with care. But because of Pluto being in your seventh house of relating, clashing with this particular event, even if you have the desire to talk something through in a very amiable and equitable way, it may be that you encounter someone who's very stubborn, resistant and unyielding, and that's where the energy between Mercury and Mars can be quite triggering and throw up a more passionate response from you. But however much we skirt around things in life, particularly the British, we're terrible, aren't we, of saying, after you, yes please, I don't want to offend, and not really saying how we truly feel. This is an event that pushes us all to confront something, even if we try to use the right kind of language, and even if it is a little bit uncomfortable and bumpy, we do need to do it. It's been a pleasure sharing this Libra New Moon with you. Please check out your year 2026 deep dive forecast by clicking on the link beneath this video. So Virgo, the new moon for you is very much about your self-worth, your everyday finances, and it can be to do with the costs of life. Now you have Mercury, your ruler, in a combination with Mars in such a sparkling way for you personally. If you do need to use a little bit more assertion to go with your precision, your natural precision, if you're discussing those things, that's a good thing. It's just that Saturn's in your seventh house and it's not aligning particularly well with the position of the moon. So however much you try to express things carefully, thoughtfully, being attuned to what the other person feels, you may not necessarily connect with them in the way you want. As long as you're prepared for that, it's going to make you even more conscious of just thinking through not just what you want to say, but perhaps it may sound a little bit strategic, but if you do plan a conversation, a difficult conversation that you need to have, perhaps it's with a boss about your package, it may be about with a lending institution about wanting to raise some money. Just strategize before, because that's going to just give you the space to think things through. But Mercury and Mars, in your case, I feel in the conjunction, can be a tremendous cosmic asset to you. It's been a pleasure sharing this Libra New Moon with you. Please check out your year 2026 deep dive forecast by clicking on the link beneath this video. So Libra, this new moon over the next month, I think gives you an opportunity to crystallize the benefits of a lot of hard work you've been doing over the last month. Because the new moon occurs so late in your sign this year, if you've been doing something fresh or different, or injecting an ongoing strand with more dynamism, you could be about to get the financial rewards over the next month. But equally, if you feel in some ways that your unique individuality is being challenged by everyday demands, routines, the more drudgery side of life, that may be something that's making you feel a bit frustrated. That's the energy of Saturn. The other thing to say about a new moon in our own sign, a fantastic chance to refresh our personal identity. Now, even if you are a dedicated follower of fashion, a few different tweaks can actually help you to feel that much more just sparkly. But if you're someone who doesn't tend to spoil yourself so much, think more of other people's needs, why not give yourself a treat? You truly do deserve it. It's been a pleasure sharing this Libra new moon with you. Please check out your year 2026 deep dive forecast by clicking on the link beneath this video. So Scorpio, a new moon in the 12th house is always complex. New moons are of course an opportunity to reset our intentions. If you're someone who's really open to personal development, working deeply within yourself, you could definitely benefit from this one. But I think it's so late in the sign of Libra, and because it's challenged by your modern ruler of Pluto, which is in the part of your scope to do with your emotions, you may be feeling very sensitive to the people that you see have not been quite as supportive as they could have been recently. Even just in terms of being conscious of what's going on in your situation. But there may also have been some disappointments about loyalty or someone's integrity. With the Sun about to move into your sign to join up with Mars, your traditional ruler, and Mercury, you are on the cusp of really moving from a more reflective, sensitive phase to a much more action and dynamic part of the year. But equally around your love life, if you're in a relationship with someone, and of course Libra can be about relationships, but for you I feel it's more about Saturn in your 5th house. If you're in a romantic tie where you're not feeling that someone is as invested as you, you could seriously be thinking about regaining control of your situation, and that will show up really quite quickly over the next few days. It's been a pleasure sharing this Libra new moon with you. Please check out your year 2026 deep dive forecast by clicking on the link beneath this video. Sagittarius, the new moon occurs in your sector of friendship, but in contrast you have Mars and Mercury in the part of your scope which is very much to do with potential secret enemies. How do we equate all of this? Well, with Saturn in the part of your chart to do with your emotions through to the middle of February, some of the energy that you've experienced over the last couple of years, apart from the brief sojourn of Saturn into Aries from the 25th of May to the 1st of September, through to the middle of February next year, I think that your environment or your sensitivity to the people you're connected to is going to be much more heightened. So with the Sun about to move into your 12th house to join up with Mars, which can stir up sediment from old situations, even if we feel we've dealt with them in the past, this is a very tender new moon. So around friendships, around your social interaction, watch out because of Pluto squaring off with them. A conversation, someone could say something, it could make you think very differently about that person. So you're entering into a time where you may want to withdraw a little bit or think very deeply or do some deep work or even healing work, which is all very good. So at the moment, the friendship and social dimension of this new moon, I feel needs to be with people who really have a lot of perception, a lot of understanding about the emotional or even spiritual dimension for you to really feel comfortable. So if you are encountering anyone you don't know well, or you've got a sixth sense that things aren't quite right, do listen to that, because as much as we all love to have connections that are jolly and friendly, particularly a Sagittarius. At the moment, it's more about sincerity around those connections. It's been a pleasure sharing this Libra New Moon with you. Please check out your year 2026 deep dive forecast by clicking on the link beneath this video. So Capricorn, the new moon for you occurs in the most prominent part of your chart, very much to do with ambition, and your skills in terms of connecting to influential people are definitely boosted by Venus being in residence in the sign of Libra. What's not to like? But Saturn is in the part of your chart to do with how you think, your belief systems, but how you express your ideas. And that's in a testing quincunx with the Sun and the Moon. So as much as you may want to develop those connections and perhaps apply for jobs, do presentations, have an interview, how you express your ideas is really key to progress. And because Mercury, the communicator, is in such an urgent conjunction with Mars, if you try to rush things at the moment, I don't think it's for the best. Work on thinking about the things you have in common with others. Your neat ambitions are very much part of who you are. It's part of your unique celestial ID. They're always going to be there. But I think this particular event is saying to you, as much as a goal that you have may be very laudable, you may see the logic in it, it's how you achieve that goal that's going to be very important over the next month. And that is likely going to come from building goodwill and mutual understanding as anything else. It's been a pleasure sharing this Libra New Moon with you. Please check out your year 2026 deep dive forecast by clicking on the link beneath this video. So Aquarius, the Libra New Moon, of course, shares your air triplicity. And air is about communication. And for you, the 9th house can be about higher truths, but it can also be about things like travel, about higher education. It can be about international connections with people. And any interest you have in history or culture can also be amplified by this particular new moon. But it does occur so late in Libra. If you are in the mood to have a change, you know the old saying, a change is as good as a rest. It could be around your work as much as anything else. And the ambition that Mars is bringing to your chart at the moment and the crispness of the message of Mercury suggests that if you do need to apply for a job, attend an interview, do a presentation, you can do so with conviction. What's not to like? Well, because of Saturn, your traditional ruler, being in your sector of everyday money, self-worth and your life foundations, if you are thinking about having a change, you must really think about those things very carefully. So you have a very realistic part of your nature as well as a very idealistic part of your nature, but that realistic part of your nature is what you need to steer towards at this present time. So even though you may feel restless, you may feel you want to break free from something that feels a bit confining and frustrating, just do factor in the practical realities of any decision you make. It's been a pleasure sharing this Libra New Moon with you. Please check out your year 2026 deep dive forecast by clicking on the link beneath this video. Pisces, the position of the new moon for you is in your 8th house. So over the last 4 weeks, you may have been doing a lot of thinking about your connections to others. In a more practical way, maybe about shared finances or things like investments. But the 8th house can be where things evolve. It's very transformational. It has a flavour of Pluto. And because this event occurs so late in the aforementioned 8th house, and you have the aforementioned Pluto in your 12th house, the Sun's about to make its way into the 9th, where you have Mercury and also Mars. And they're pushing you to be much more flamboyant and push into the open some essential truth. And I think even if it does mean revealing something that's rather tender or sensitive, it may actually be quite liberating. But the key is someone could push into the open something about you that you're not particularly comfortable with. And with Saturn in your sign in a quincunx with the Sun, just getting the balance between what you want from situations and where you're deeply connected or invested, whether it's financially, spiritually, emotionally, or intimately, is no easy task. What I will say is once the Sun does move into the sign of Scorpio, your need for a change, perhaps a holiday, perhaps to do something more independent and adventurous is very strong. So if you're not enjoying a romantic alliance at the moment, it's on a knife edge about whether you'll stay in it or not. If it's a tie that you put a lot into and it's not really at rock bottom, it may require more patience. And when Mercury and Mars are together, patience can be hard to find. So don't rush it. You could say something in a very direct way at the moment, which may give you an immediate relief, but it might not solve the problem. So patience is going to be important if you feel something is still worth working at. But certainly looking at things in a fresh way is definitely going to be helpful in this event. And if you have felt a bit boxed in or uncertain of how to go forwards, I think greater clarity is going to come very soon for you. It's been a pleasure sharing this Libra New Moon with you. Please check out your year 2026 deep dive forecast by clicking on the link beneath this video.